Late in October 1956, inside a secluded villa in Sèvres, France, three nations signed a secret document so dangerous they promised to burn every copy. British, French, and Israeli officials gathered in secret to plot an aggressive war. The unsealed file reveals a master plan built on deliberate deception, aiming to seize the Suez Canal and crush Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser. This handwritten deal, known as the Protocol of Sèvres, was a calculated trap. The strategic plan relied on a fake military crisis to justify a foreign invasion. Israel would strike first, launching a sudden military thrust across the Sinai Desert toward the vital canal. Britain and France would then pretend to be neutral peacekeepers, stepping in to demand that both fighting sides stop immediately. When Egypt inevitably rejected an ultimatum that forced them to abandon their own territory, British and French troops would invade to secure the strategic waterway. The roots of this conspiracy began months earlier, when Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal Company. For Britain, the vital shipping channel was the absolute lifeblood of its global empire and Middle Eastern oil trade. British Prime Minister Anthony Eden viewed the nationalization as a direct attack on Western prestige. He became convinced that removing the Egyptian president was the only way to safeguard British imperial dominance across the entire region. In London, Anthony Eden operated under the deep shadow of past world wars, convincing himself that compromising with Middle Eastern leaders would bring ultimate ruin. The declassified record shows that Eden repeatedly ignored urgent warnings from his own top advisors, who feared an unprovoked invasion would alienate key global allies. Instead of seeking a durable diplomatic resolution, Eden chose complete collusion, risking Britain's entire international standing on a secret pact that hinged on outright deception. The secret treaty formally spelled out every specific step of the coordinated joint assault. Israeli forces would initiate armed hostilities on October 29, driving deeply into Egyptian territory across the desert. The following day, London and Paris would issue a joint ultimatum demanding an immediate ceasefire and a 10-mile buffer zone along the canal banks. The unsealed transcript proves that the entire operation was engineered to create a pre-planned casus belli out of thin air. When the military assault finally began, the tactical plan unfolded exactly as written in the protocol. Israeli paratroopers dropped near the strategic Mitla Pass, drawing Egyptian army reserves far away from the canal zone. The initial battlefield moves matched the precise timeline established at Sèvres, but the illusion of a sudden regional conflict immediately began to crumble under intense global scrutiny, quickly revealing the coordinated hands operating behind the scenes. The secret planners made one critical tactical mistake that doomed their entire enterprise. They assumed the United States would turn a blind eye to the military intervention during a major American presidential election year. President Dwight Eisenhower was caught completely off guard by the sudden military invasion launched by his primary Western allies. Dwight Eisenhower refused to tolerate a secret military adventure that threatened to throw the entire Middle East directly into the Soviet sphere of influence. Eisenhower acted with speed to crush the operation before it triggered a broader international confrontation. The unsealed transcript shows Washington taking unprecedented diplomatic action at the United Nations, demanding an immediate ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of all foreign invasion forces. Britain and France found themselves totally isolated on the world stage, facing severe public condemnation not just from their Soviet rivals, but from their most essential American partner. The real crushing blow to the invasion did not come from battlefield firepower, but from financial pressure. As the dangerous crisis expanded, international investors panicked, causing massive runs on the British national currency. The United Kingdom faced immediate financial collapse as its central gold reserves dropped at an alarming rate. Anthony Eden pleaded for urgent economic relief from Washington, desperately asking for massive loans to save the collapsing national economy. Eisenhower responded with cold, mechanical political force through the United States Treasury. Washington blocked all access to emergency financial funds and threatened to dump American reserves of British sterling unless London ordered an immediate military ceasefire. This financial mechanism was ruthless, leaving British leadership with a stark choice between continuing a military campaign or suffering absolute national bankruptcy within a matter of days. Faced with total economic ruin and mounting domestic outrage, Anthony Eden broke under the relentless pressure. Britain was forced to issue a humiliating ceasefire order, halting its advancing military forces just short of securing complete control over the Canal Zone. The operational victory on the ground was instantly transformed into a disastrous political defeat, proving that traditional imperial military force could no longer function without explicit American backing. The overwhelming physical and political strain destroyed Anthony Eden, whose health rapidly deteriorated throughout the escalating chaos. The declassified cables reflect a leader whose judgment was blinded by romantic nostalgia for empire and personal obsession with foreign adversaries. Within months of the failed invasion, Eden resigned from office in complete disgrace, his political legacy permanently ruined by the illegal conspiracy hatched at Sèvres and the disastrous collapse of British global influence. In Egypt, the strategic outcome was the exact opposite of what the secret conspirators had anticipated. Gamal Abdel Nasser emerged from the intense crisis as an unshakable national hero and champion of Arab independence, his political standing higher than ever before. The physical waterway remained under firm Egyptian control, fully nationalized, while the invading foreign armies were forced to retreat under strict international supervision, leaving the regional balance of power fundamentally altered. For France, the ultimate failure of the secret protocol exposed devastating strategic miscalculations. French leaders had supported the secret plot, hoping to cut off vital Egyptian military support for independence fighters in Algeria. Instead, the tactical failure energized anti-colonial movements across all of North Africa, accelerating the final collapse of the French Empire and forcing French intelligence services to confront the harsh consequences of their deeply flawed assumptions. The crisis severely damaged the Western Security Alliance, creating lasting mistrust among members of the North Atlantic Treaty Network. French military planners concluded that Britain would always surrender to American diplomatic pressure when pushed to the absolute brink. This bitter realization pushed France to build its own independent nuclear strike force and pursue a nationalist foreign policy far less reliant on Washington, permanently reshaping European defense policy for the remainder of the century. The sudden vacuum left by the collapse of British and French imperial power was rapidly filled by the Soviet Union. Moscow seized the golden geopolitical opportunity to extend its reach into the Middle East, offering massive financial aid and advanced weapons to Arab nations. The unsealed file highlights how a desperate attempt to preserve old colonial dominance actually opened the front door for Soviet expansion across a vital strategic region. For decades, the physical existence of the Protocol of Sèvres was officially denied by successive British governments. Key conspirators had attempted to systematically destroy every signed copy to erase all physical proof of the secret collusion. However, a surviving French copy preserved within private diplomatic archives eventually surfaced years later, exposing the exact written schedule of the plot and providing undeniable evidence of the top-level deceit that sparked the war. The 1956 conflict proved decisively to the international community that the era of European colonial dominance was over. The old imperial powers could no longer dictate world affairs through military force without the explicit permission of the world's two true superpowers. Global power dynamics had officially shifted into a rigid bipolar order, where strategic decisions made in Washington and Moscow mattered far more than commands issued from London or Paris. The crisis also marked a monumental turning point for international diplomacy and global conflict management. The United Nations organized and deployed its first official armed emergency force to monitor the ceasefire and guarantee the safe withdrawal of foreign troops. This operational mechanism transformed how the international community managed aggressive state action, replacing unilateral colonial interventions with collective diplomatic peacekeeping operations on a global scale. In the United Kingdom, the military collapse triggered profound political soul-searching across every level of government. Public confidence in official secrecy shattered as hidden details of the secret deal gradually leaked to the press over subsequent years. British leaders were forced to accept that national defense policy was strictly constrained by financial dependency on international markets, forcing a dramatic permanent reduction in foreign military commitments worldwide. Military intelligence analysts heavily scrutinized the failed operation to understand how such a flawed strategic plan had ever been authorized. The unsealed record shows that decision-making was consistently corrupted by selective intelligence reading and a complete refusal to anticipate enemy countermeasures. The breakdown in strategic communication among allies revealed that rapid military progress on the battlefield is meaningless without a clear, sustainable political objective behind it. The resolution of the crisis demonstrated the decisive supremacy of economic leverage over traditional military force. Eisenhower proved that controlling foreign exchange reserves and international loan approvals could defeat a multi-nation military invasion without firing a single bullet. This landmark event established that modern global power was no longer determined purely by naval fleets, but by absolute mastery over international banking systems and sovereign financial credit. Looking back across the unsealed record, the Protocol of Sèvres remains one of the most disastrous diplomatic gambits in modern history. Three allied nations attempted to fabricate an artificial conflict through hidden collusion, only to destroy their own international authority in the process. The failure exposed the extreme dangers of political leaders relying on outdated colonial strategies in a rapidly changing 20th century geopolitical landscape. The enduring lessons of the 1956 crisis continue to reverberate across contemporary foreign policy and statecraft. The history reveals how easily national hubris and secret backroom deals can lead to sudden, catastrophic miscalculations that rewrite international relations overnight. When political leaders substitute desperate conspiracy for sound diplomatic strategy, even the most meticulously engineered plans will rapidly unravel under the pressure of global reality. The declassified paper trail of Sèvres serves as a permanent memorial to the precise moment imperial ambition fractured along the banks of Suez. The secret treaty designed to preserve foreign control over a foreign nation instead exposed the deep vulnerability of traditional colonial power to the entire world. What began in a secluded villa as a secret plan to dictate history ended as a landmark lesson in strategic failure.